This back to school video is to help your kiddo when it comes to technology and sleep. Whether they have an anxious, worried, nervous brain, or maybe they have a distracted, disorganized brain and you want to help them focus better, these two things can make a critical difference and they actually work together. So, number one, when it comes to technology, there's something called a sensory motor loop. What that means is that when sensory information comes into our brain, in the case of technology, it's coming from the movement on the screen and the sound into our ears. When that sensory information comes into our brain wants to do a motor action. Motor means the muscles and the movement. So, if there is a lot of sensory information in, our brain wants to have a lot of motor movement out. What does this mean? If your kiddo is on a screen a lot at school, maybe they're using their iPad for classes, or they get home from school and they're playing video games, or they're doing homework on their screens, and meanwhile, they've been sitting still that whole time, their body and their brain starts to build up this pent-up energy. It's because there's been a lot of sensory information in, but if they're sitting still, not much motor output. So in order to complete this loop and help your kiddo's brain feel satisfied, it's feeling satisfied means it's going to help them feel calmer and more grounded, and it's also going to help with their focus and their mood regulation and ability to sit still. So in order to help them feel satisfied, they need movement. So how to apply this for your kiddo? Let's say they are on their iPad a lot during the school day while sitting still. When they come home, have them run around and play before doing more homework. Or before maybe they get some screen time as a reward after school, make sure they get movement in beforehand. Same then, after they've done some screen time at home, give them time to move and play and process that sensory input before bedtime. Because if they've had a lot of screen time in, but not much motor movement out, it's going to have a lot of pent up energy in their body, and as a result, it's going to make sleep more difficult. The other thing that technology does is it can be stimulating for our nervous system. In order for us to get deep sleep at night, we want our nervous system to be as calm and grounded as possible and not being stimulated by things like Wi-Fi or the signals from our cell phone, Bluetooth. All those electronics transfer those EMFs and those frequencies in a certain wavelength that can stress our nervous system out. So as an example, in our house, we have our router, our Wi-Fi, the router modem all plugged into its very own power strip. So before we go to bed at night, we just flick off that power strip and it creates a calmer environment to sleep in. We turn our phones, usually we turn them all the way off. If you do need your phone, say for an alarm clock, make sure it's on airplane mode, and not only on airplane mode, but the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth are turned off as well. You want it transmitting as little signal as possible. The third, we'll say comment here, is why is sleep so important? And when in the past, I believe that the main thing sleep did was recharge the body if you had a busy physical day and kind of get your mind sharp again. But one of the critical things sleep does is it actually integrates everything you did during that day. The example I can think of, when I was in high school, we had to memorize a short story and present it in front of the class without any notes. And so I was memorizing paragraph 1 and number 2 and trying to do it, and I would set it aside and try to recall it, and I was like, oh, I just can't do it. And I tried hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, getting it, and it never really clicked. However, once I slept that night, I woke up in the next morning and boom, I could say it all without looking at my notes. So that's an example of how sleep was helping me process the day. The other thing sleep does is if we have an emotional, stressful day, oftentimes a similar emotion or a similar context can be processed during our dreams. So if your kiddo is having more vivid dreams at night, odds are they're processing some sort of stress they didn't fully process during the day. And let's say your kiddo's in sports and they have late night practices, or they're going around the clock and they've got to study and do their sports and they think, I'll just skip some of my sleep. The interesting thing is if your kiddo is practicing a certain movement, shooting a basketball, swinging a bat, kicking a soccer ball, and they're trying to practice a certain technique, their brain also integrates that new movement pattern during sleep. specifically the last hour or two of sleep. So if they try to cut their sleep schedule short, it will actually affect how quick they can make progress in their practice and be able to turn those practice skills into executable skills during game time if they're cutting their sleep short. So pass that along to your kiddo to give them some extra motivation to really get a full, deep night's sleep. I will talk to you soon.